Okay, Alex, I'm streaming us over to meet our mighty mystery friends. Everyone's so excited to chat with you. And I'm just going to be checking things over here on my screen. And it looks like we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery friends. I'm your on-air host, Sarah DeVello, and I am thrilled, pun intended, to host the incredible Alex Finlay today, author of Every Last Fear, which is getting the most incredible praise. And we're going to get into every single bit of it. Alex, welcome to Mighty Mysteries. Tell us about your book.
Well, first, thank you for having me. This is really super exciting for me. About the book, Every Last Fear is, well, I'll start with the beginning. After a late night out, an NYU student, my protagonist, Matt Pine, returns to his dorm to some really devastating news. He learns that his parents and his two younger siblings have been found dead in what appears to be freak accidents while they're on spring break in this beautiful Mexican resort town. It makes national news, both because it's, just awful, but also because the Pine family has been somewhat famous because they were the subject of a viral true crime documentary in recent years. And it revolved around the oldest son. Matt's older brother was sent to prison 7 years ago for killing his high school girlfriend. And the documentary suggests he's innocent. And it's become kind of like a national cause to free Danny Pine. And then you have his family all kind of perish. And the book is really about a kind of irresponsible, carefree college student trying to cope with this crushing loss, but also, explore, like, it starts to look like this wasn't an accident on the vacation, and he's kind of tasked with figuring out whether it was an accident and whether it has anything to do with the documentary or his brother's conviction.
Well, Alex, I have got to say I am reading it now and I am 100% sucked in. I mean, from the first page. So I want to talk about how you did this because it is a complex book to write. I mean, we've got multiple points of view. We've got multiple points of time. So I want to get into all of that. But first, I just want to welcome all of our mystery and thriller fans, friends on Facebook. So if you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, welcome. We're so thrilled to host you. Here's how it works. Every Tuesday, I present you with a featured author and you get to ask them anything. This is your chance, mystery and thriller fans. Pick Alex's brain. Ask him about the behind the scenes, what didn't make it into a book, anything that's weighing on your brain within reason. Just type them right in the comments and I will get those questions right over to Alex. I'm going to be monitoring things right over here on my second screen so I won't miss a thing. Now, I know it always takes me a moment to think of my questions. So while you're firing your questions up, I have got to share the praise that this book is earning because holy Shiza, holy blazes, this praise is fired up. So today.com has named Every Last Fear one of their 10 most anticipated books of the year. Absolutely incredible. Pop Sugar featured it as a best new book coming out this year. BuzzFeed, Goodreads, Mystery and Suspense Magazine, Deadly Pleasures, Mystery and Mayhem, Bibliophile, Off Cultured, Rush Magazine. My God, I could go on and on. I mean, it's just taking this genre by storm. And the queen of mysteries and thrillers herself, Karen Slaughter, has raved, prepare yourself for twist after exciting twist, a standout novel plotted with surgical precision. So let's start there. Alex, did you plot this out with surgical precision? I mean, or are you a pantser? Tell us the behind the scenes process.
Well, it was, as you mentioned, it was a challenge. I kind of wrote myself into a corner with the opening scene. Like the opening line is, they found the bodies
on a Tuesday. Yes.
And so, and you learn very quickly that most of the Pine family are gone. And at that point, I could have, it was fairly daunting because I was like, well, what am I, how am I going to fill 90,000 words with what happened? And it was a process, it is complicated. It's multiple points of view from not just from Matt Pine, the protagonist in present time, but from the deceased members of his family. And for me, I thought that was an interesting way to tell a story, which is, it was a challenge because, you want the readers to invest and they already know that these, the mom and the dad and the little sister and the little brother are gone. But it was also a way to tell the story from their perspective in the days leading to this fateful trip, and to delve out little clues along the way of what happened to them. And so the reader kind of goes through that process while Matt is simultaneously, along with the only non-Pine family member point of view character, an FBI agent, while they're kind of in present time unfolding the mystery for themselves. So, it's definitely was a challenge, lots of outlining, lots of hand wringing on my part that we pulled it off. And luckily I have great editors and good beta readers. And I hope for most readers it comes, for all readers it comes together when you all the pieces kind of converge at the very end, and you see how the puzzle and the pixels kind of create the image at the end of the day.
Well, it's working for me as a reader because from that very first line, they found the bodies on a Tuesday. I was hooked. I had to know more. And you have pulled off that trick of keeping me hooked page by page. Let's go a little deeper. How long did it take you to write this book?
I mean, I don't, you're kind of continuing, as you get a first draft done, but you're editing, continually. I think we edited, till just a few months ago. And so I think all told, the first draft probably took me a good year. And then it was just an ongoing process of tweaking it and trying to make sure trying to make it so it wasn't confusing, because it has a lot of point of view characters and it's a past and present story at the same time. So it took a while, and I don't, it never really, it was always on my mind. And I think most writers can say the story you're in, you're obsessing about it constantly and you want to make it better. But at the same time, you're so close to it, you don't, at some point you're just like, I don't know if this is working. And so I would take a little breaks from it here and there, because I think that helps.
I love that. And I can totally relate to both being obsessed and also being too close. I totally feel that. I want to welcome Anissa Joy, a top community member. She's giving you tons of hearts up there. Mike O'Neill says, hi, everybody. He is saying that he loved the book. Mike, welcome. I'm a member of the Thrillaholics Facebook group, the most happening thriller and mystery book group out there. Welcome, Patty. Welcome, everybody. If you have any questions for Alex, just go ahead and type them right in the comments and I'll get them over to him. Now, when Karen Slaughter, I mean, my God, that is high praise, said that you plotted this with surgical precision. I mean, that must have felt great to get not just her review, but all of these incredible reviews. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're always, you have self-doubt when you're writing the book, and it was great to get people you've admired, people who are just bona fide great writers that millions of readers admire, to have them take the time, because they get a lot of requests for blurbs, and they have to they have to kind of manage that, and then to just go out of their way to be so kind. It's really heartening. I think it's about the I have found that the thriller mystery writing community is really, really supportive, and it's not a area like in many industries you think, well, you're all competitors, and so let's not help each other. And it's really just a community. I think because writing can be so daunting, there's so much rejection, that there's a kind of camaraderie and a real desire to help each other. It's just it really made it beyond just getting the book published and getting nice feedback, just making great friends and seeing great people help each other. There's really nothing to gain other than to be a really good person and kind, generous soul to support other writers.
I have to say, having segued over to the mystery and thriller realm from another genre, I have been absolutely astounded with how incredibly kind everyone is. I mean, I got here. It is. I mean, I've also heard that the romance genre is incredibly supportive, and that's really cool too. But I honestly can't believe how nice everyone is. Like, I almost thought, am I being tricked? How could everybody be so damn nice? How can everyone be? I mean, what am I missing? What do you want? I'm so suspicious. But it is an incredibly supportive genre. It's been so heartening to see, especially during doing the series during the pandemic, this spot of goodness and kindness and generosity and willingness to boost each other up. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I agree, and I too, I can't think of any thriller writer, mystery writer that I've encountered that hasn't, you know, just been super supportive, offered to help gratuitously, and I'm talking and getting to know other people in the genre. I don't think it's fake. I think it's not a weird experience you and I are having. I think that's just the way it is. The only thing I can think of is that it's a long road, and we stand on the shoulders of the kind of people who were before us, and you got to pay it forward if you can, if you're in a position to later on.
I love it. And everyone is so genuinely kind, and it's not fake at all. It's really been so heartfelt and so incredible. All right, the questions are coming in, so I want to get over to them. Thank you, everyone. Keep them coming. So first from Mike, and this is actually, I'm calling you Alex because I think that's like that's your name, but it turns out this is actually a pseudonym, which makes you even more mysterious. A mysterious mystery writer wrapped in an enigma. I love it. So Mike is wondering, do you feel that your other books won't get any notice? So what's that like having two identities, Alex? Tell us about that.
It was kind of it's kind of a strange thing, but it was the purpose of it was is this is my first really commercial psychological thriller, um, and I'm a lawyer. I've written legal based books, and so the thought was I wanted to write without any expectations and just distinguish um, this work, and hopefully have many of this kind of book going forward. I've since learned, in any other universe, having a name that is not yours would be kind of unusual and kind of sketchy, and people would kind of question what's going on with you. But it's in the literary world, it's pretty common, and
Yeah.
they don't bat an eye about it. I've been having fun experiencing in the world as Mr. Finlay. My wife wants to use a fake name if we travel, and
I love it. I love it. And my writing partner's name actually is Andy Finlay. So it was so funny. I was like, oh, you must be related. Oh, wait, it's a fake name. I have to keep remembering that. So I love that.
The only downside has been the disappointment on people's faces that I'm not somebody more more interesting or famous that behind this pen name. But it's kind of funny that way. But I'm trying getting used to it and taking it in stride.
Yeah, I didn't know who was going to come in. I didn't know could it be Dean Koontz? I didn't know if you were going to be a man or a woman. I had no idea. So to me, you are Alex Finlay. So I absolutely love that. And yeah, and so that's so funny because this is who you are to me. And actually, you're the third pseudonym wearing writer that I've hosted so far in the past year. And I don't know, I'm just so fascinated. I'm already thinking, what would my fake name be? So let me put that question out to Facebook. Actually, what would your fake names be, everybody? Tell us in the comments. Okay, another great question from Mike. He would like to know, is this book, and this, Mike, you're reading my mind. Is this book based on any true crime? And the reason, so I think Mike's just asking, but the reason I wanted to ask you is because it actually reminded me a little bit of the Adnan Syed case.
Well, it's not based on any one true crime. It's an amalgamation of this new sensation we've had in recent years with the true crime podcast, the true crime documentary, and so I think it probably draws on elements from different things that when I was researching and delving in, like what did I want my story to be, and I think a lot of these shows have, particularly when they involve a question about whether somebody was wrongfully convicted, they have some similarities because the reasons people are wrongfully convicted, there's often kind of earmarks for that. false confessions, bad eyewitness testimony, things I learned about in writing the book, and from some past experience in the law world that are really shocking, and things you wouldn't. I think that these shows have shined a light on things that many of us may not have believed were possible. I mean, I think most of us think, I confessed to a crime I didn't commit. Why? Of course I wouldn't do that. But studies show that it's not that uncommon, and not because somebody's getting threatened with a phone book over their head. It's the nature of how interrogations go, and how particularly kids view them, and things like that. So it was kind of fascinating, but it's not based on any one incident. Although Serial podcast for me was a turning point in this genre. I remember sitting around with my my wife and my older son, like it was like the 1950s, listening to a radio show, to the podcast. So it certainly draws on this modern phenomena. True crime dates back forever, but I just think now the quality and the storytelling and the productions, we've got, how they're putting more into the productions has turned a corner for this. We maybe get oversaturated at some point, but I think somebody's described it as a renaissance for true crime, and with some of these shows, I think there's something to that.
Absolutely. I stayed up last night watching the crime scene documentary about the Hotel Cecil last night. And I'm a true crime junkie. I loved it. I love Serial. I have 32 minutes left on this Hotel Cecil thing. So I've got to know what happens.
Did you see the SNL, the Saturday Night Live murder show skit? If you haven't, anybody who's a true crime junkie, Saturday Night Live did one of their song parodies, and it was about people watching murder shows. It was pretty fun.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that yet, but I love SNL, so I will Google that as soon as the instant that I log off of this interview, because it's my two favorite things: SNL, laughing so hard that I'm getting an ab workout, and true crime. So when those three things meet, it's my happy place. We're getting lots of hearts up from our friends who are watching. Mike says, thank you for explaining this, Alex. And Nissa, you're reading my mind too. She was also wondering if this was based on a true crime. Thanks so much for answering that. Welcome, Sue. Welcome, Nazanin. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much. I'm just making sure I don't miss any of your questions. Nazanin would like to know, who was the hardest character to write? Ooh, good question, because you've got young Matt, you've got the dad, you've got Maggie, the sister, you've got the FBI agent, who I love reading. I love seeing her behind the scenes. I mean, you have written from so many different points of view: male, female, different ages, a kid, a dad, an FBI agent, a mom, a woman. Tell us, who was the hardest?
Well, that's a great question. I think I know who the easiest was. Like the FBI agent you mentioned, Sarah Keller, was one of my favorite characters to write. She came more naturally to me. I think whenever you're a bald guy writing about in the shoes of a 12-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid, those can be a challenge. I have children, so I've gotten to see glimpses of those different ages. But you never know if you're getting it right, and you just kind of do your best. As far as the most difficult to write, I think it was probably the mother character, and I can't really tell you why that is. I think that she, Liv Pine, has secrets of her own, and she's kind of thrown herself into her youngest son to deal with the grief of her, her husband's obsession with freeing her oldest son. And that one, I think, for whatever reason, was harder for me. But they all presented challenges.
One of the many things that I am loving as I read this book is how you show the very real way that something like this would splinter a family apart. So you see this marriage affected, and you see one spouse, the dad, become completely obsessed because he was so close to his son Danny, their football memories, and they were such a easy fit in terms of that relationship dynamic. He is so obsessed and so committed to proving his son's innocence, which of course is so relatable. And then you see Maggie, his daughter, really trying to make this okay for him and also trying to help him, but, trying to protect her dad because she sees her family splintered apart by this. And you see the toll that it takes on the wife and mother, the Liv character. And I loved how you showed how something like this would really be affecting people in different ways, members of the family, the same family, but in very different ways and in very painful ways, very real ways. Which leads me into my next question. And Anissa would like to know, what sources did you use for this research? Mike is saying these characters are so great. Mike, I totally agree. Let's talk about your research process for how, every single person, because you had to know how an FBI agent would be feeling, would be working. You had to know, I mean, you were at some point an 18-year-old boy. so that was probably your easiest one. But tell us about the research that you did for this.
Well, I'd like to say it was some great in-depth familial kind of studies and things like that. I do a lot from, my family, that there's nothing, we obviously didn't experience this, but a lot of it's just imagining what would happen if this had happened to my family. And I think there's a lot of, all of our families have their own dynamics. And in the Pine family, you have the dad who's obsessed, as you mentioned, because he's super tight with his oldest son. The mom has kind of thrown herself into the youngest son. And the Maggie character, who's one of my favorite characters, 12 years old when her brother sent away, and she finds the way to navigate the family is to be the Watson to her father's homes and trying to free her brother. And there's something kind of sad, there's something sweet about that. But I mean, the thing that the wedge that I think for me was the most interesting is this idea that Matt, the main character, he's kind of estranged from his father, and they just don't get, like, why are you not on board with our mission here, which is bringing your brother? And what they don't understand, it's not a spoiler, it's the jacket description, but Matt knows a secret. He has a secret. He hasn't told them that the night that Danny's girlfriend was murdered, he saw something that makes him think his brother is guilty, and he has to live with that. And it just affects every part of his relationship with his family. And I just thought that was interesting. And we all have friends or our own families or extended families. There's always some kind of drama going on in the dynamics. And then this just throwing a grenade, which is a conviction of an oldest child, and then a documentary, I thought was a kind of interesting way to explore, just family dynamics and what would happen to my family.
Yeah, I love how you do. I love how you do that. How you layer, I mean, this incredibly absorbing plot and I love how you did very short chapters, because I actually stayed up until 3 a.m. reading that. And I'm tired today. So thanks for that, Alex. I'm exhausted because of you. It's all your fault. But I finally at 3 a.m. said, okay, Sarah, put the book down. You can read more tomorrow. But I love how, because they're so short, I think, ooh, just one more. But then it's 3 a.m. and I can't. Was that a conscious choice to do those really short chapters?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I'm a huge reader in the genre, and there has been a trend towards shorter chapters because I think for that reason, like, it's always just that, all right, one more, can't be that much more. For me, it was also the way I wrote it. I mean, I wrote a lot of the book on the subway, going going to the office and back. And so a lot of the chapters are just kind of like, I think about a scene a lot before I start writing. And by the time I write, pretty fast. And most of it was like stop A to stop B. And I'm telling you, like, most of the chapters, is basically a morning and evening commute, the length of them. So it's a little bit of both. But I do think that thriller writers have raised the game as far as getting you to turn the page, and anything you can do to encourage that, I'm all for, and that's part of the reason I did it.
You are getting a ton of hearts up for that, Alex. And actually, when Jeffrey Deaver was on the show, he told us that he also a lawyer, I'm sure you know, and wrote about his first books on his subway commute to and from work while he was still a lawyer and then a legal journalist. So I love this idea of these commute books. These are fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
know that. I didn't know that about. I knew that about Scott Turow. He's kind of a famous. When I thought about trying to write a novel, Scott Turow's obviously in. As a lawyer author, he was one of the founding kind of the modern legal thriller. I heard he did that. I have some other friends who've done it. There's a lot of books written, and I think that's part of being a writer. Particularly if you have a job, a day job, I guess, and you've got to find time, and you're never going to write the book if you don't find little parts to carve out portions where you can get words on a page. And so for me, um, that was just a way to get words on a phone, basically. At the end of the week, dump them into a Word document. Most of it was not greatest, but it was something there that I could work with. And so when I did sit down, it wasn't as intimidating as it is to, go to a blank page. That's a tough thing to sit down to. Whereas if you have words, you can play with them. You might cut most of them, but it still gets the momentum going.
Oh, I love that. And thank you, because I think this makes it feel more doable when we share really what the process looks like. Because I think this, a lot of people have this idea that, oh, well, if I don't have 10 hours a day and a quiet room and a cup of coffee and these brilliant thoughts coming, I can't write a book. But it's so great to know that you and Jeffrey Deaver and Scott Trureau were, writing this on your commute. You're just making it happen because it's important to you. So I absolutely love that. Nazanin would like to know, where did you get the idea to write this book? Great question. Tell us the backstory of where the genesis of this came from.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as original as you might think. I was on a spring break trip to Tulum, Mexico, where the story opens, with my family. Most of my family, except my college age NYU student son at the time. And we waited until the last minute to book the trip. And so there was really only one place in the whole area, this kind of beautiful resort community, that was available. It was really off the beaten path, and it was an eco hotel. We never stayed at an eco hotel. Not exactly like the most outdoorsy person in the world, but we thought it would be an adventure, and we went. And we basically spent the day doing all the fun beach and all these things you do in a beautiful area like that. And at night we'd go back, and it would be, there's really nothing. There's no TV. There's no entertainment. And the lights, because they were saving energy, the lights would go off at like 10 at night. And so we'd watch these murder shows in the dark on our laptop. And just out the window was like woodland. And for me, it was like jungle. And one night, my family was kind of all drifting away, sleeping, and I'm up. We just watched all these kind of true crime shows, and I'm listening to all the sounds of the jungle just outside the room. It's dark. There's nobody around, and I was scrolling my phone feed, and there's a story about these mysterious deaths of people on vacations, families or individuals, and there was like a composite of all this happening. So I just started thinking, well, what would I? What not really what would I do? What would my college-age son do if something happened to us all and we were abroad? And then I thought about these documentaries and like what happens to these after the camera stopped rolling. And then I just kind of tapped out the opening line, which we talked about, and then the first chapter about family dying mysteriously in a vacation rental that was basically a lot like the one I was staying.
Oh my God. I love this behind the scenes sneak peek. Thank you for that. And holy crap, you are way braver than me to be staying in the middle of the jungle, watching true crime shows in the dark by yourself. Oh my God. I would not sleep a wink after that. That
Yeah.
is
It's
hilarious.
it's a very safe area, and it was more along the lines of just the isolation of and never being at an eco resort, and it was lovely. It's very different when you're basically off in an unfamiliar setting by yourself and the lights go out. So one thing led to another, but yeah, it was definitely memorable, and that trip was really magical. Like I tried to capture in later scenes in the book where the parents go to, we see why they went to Tulum and some of the things they did. You know, you kind of try and draw on some of the experiences we have, like riding more bikes and going to the different locales. So, you know, it's definitely a great memory, and we tried to capture some of it. You got to fictionalize it. It's a crime book, but it was definitely a special place to go. I'd recommend if you're looking.
Yeah, I haven't been to Tulum. I've been to Chichen Itza. I love ruins. And so I love ruins. I've been to the Greek ruins. I've been to the Italian ruins. I've been to one of the Mexican ruins. I love ruins. So Tulum is on my list. Oh my gosh. So many great questions coming in here. Mike is saying you have incredibly vivid scenes. Mike, I totally agree. And he would like to know, who is your favorite thriller author for you to read?
Well, that's a good question. I am a huge reader in the genre. It's always one of my best. You know, people ask me, "Well, what's your best tip for writing the thriller?" I'm like, read a lot of thrillers, because I'm just always amazed at how thriller writers and mystery writers can just continually up the game, make something fresh, do something unique, transport you to, you know, places you've never even imagined going or being. So I'm a big reader. I I hate the question who's my favorite, because it really depends on like what mood I'm in. I like if I'm into like a twisty psychological suspense. There's Gillian Flynn, of course, and Lisa Unger, and with Constantine, Jennifer Hillier. If I'm into a espionage like book, uh, there's Daniel Silva. One of my favorite kind of espionage books is called I Am Pilgrim by author named Terry Hayes. Recommend that heavily if you're into something long but really compelling. And I like literary crime fiction. Lee Burney's a favorite. And I can just go on and on. I'm just a big, you know, kind of fan person in genre. So it's fun for me to have, you know, to have written a book and to meet some of these people that I've been reading for so long. And you know, I'm rambling, so I'll just say there's too many to mention.
No, these are fantastic answers. I know I'm making a few notes of authors I need to check out and books I need to snag. So thank you for that. Um, oh, and I love this question. Did you determine the ending before you started writing the book? So yeah, let's get back to that plotting versus pantsing. Tell us, let's hear the answer, the behind the scenes to that question.
Yeah, I'm not I'm kind of a hybrid of the plotter and answer, you know,
Ooh, hybrid.
technique. I I do little sections of the brief, not brief, of the book at a time. I didn't know the ending to this one. I was worried about the ending. I obsessed a lot about the ending, and it kind of came together at the end, as it would expect. But I didn't have it all mapped out, and that was what I would do is I would write um, big chunks of just one character, big chunks of just the daughter, big chunks of just the mom, and then I kind of dice them all up and try and figure out how to make the pacing right. But you know, it was down to the wire to feel like it was all going to come together. So that's a long-winded way of saying I didn't know where it was going to go. I had a general idea of most of the plot, except for the culmination.
Wow. I love that you're a hybrid. We don't hear that much. I think that's really cool. Joanne is saying she also loved I Am Pilgrim. I haven't read that yet, so I'll have to check that out. Thank you both. Um, Ooh, another great question. Without any spoilers, oh my gosh, so many great questions. I want to get to them all. Without any spoilers, will there be another book in this series? I want to know more about that. Tell us.
Yeah, it's not. I guess I don't think of it as a series, but the next book that I'm working on now, it will not have any of the Pines, but it will feature as a prominent character the FBI agent Sarah Keller. It will be set before this what happened in every last year. and it's a little bit of a uh, you know, it's set. It opens on New Year's Eve, 1999, Y2K, and um, there is a a kind of horrible event that occurs, and then 15 years later, a very similar horrible event. So, I'm not going to kind of get into details on to take the life out of it for me, but it's really about two very similar crimes 15 years apart, and are they connected? And Sarah Keller's tasked with kind of figuring it out.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that your FBI agent, Sarah Keller, is awesome. First, because her name is Sarah, and that's the best name ever. And also because she's just a really cool person. Mike is saying he found that he thought that you connected the dots so well. He can't wait for the next one. I totally agree. Welcome, Thomas. Hey, Colette. Ooh, another great one from, I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. Another great one from Naz, and then saying, asking, was it weird going back and forth writing the characters that were already dead? I was also wondering that. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically it was weird, but also a concern because you're worried that in the opening chapter, if the reader knows these people are gone, are they going to want to invest in learning about them? And so there was that piece of it. But I just ultimately landed on that I thought it was an interesting way to tell a story and to have the whole family gone, but you learn through each of their perspectives, kind of enough to know what happens, and then you have the culminating event. And for me, it was heartbreaking to have the ending be the ending. I toyed with the idea of making it somehow finding that they weren't dead, but there was no way to do that. And, but yeah, it was definitely, particularly, you have young people, and I love the Maggie Pine character, just that idea of such promise in a young person to have them, have a life on. Yeah, so it was definitely, it was tricky, it was hard, and I had a lot of self doubts about it.
You were getting a ton of hearts up from Facebook. Mike is saying, good questions. Thanks, Mike. And thanks to you guys for asking these awesome questions. These are so great. And I was also really attached to the Maggie character because I was an overachieving straight A dork. And of course, I just wanted her to, stay alive somehow because I did get very attached to her. So thank you for that insight. Okay, we have just 1 minute left. So if you have any last questions for our incredible author, go ahead and get them going. And then we are actually over time. So it feels like it's been a second, but the questions have been so good. I wanted to get them all in. I loved how the advanced reader copy came with a note from your editor describing how you first met in a dim bar in New York City, and you shared, in my mind, perhaps a glass of scotch, and you shared this idea for this book. And then years later, it ended up on his desk. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, I missed your question. Thank you for asking it again. I want to make sure we get this. He would like to know, are there any movie or streaming offers coming your way? I can totally see this on the screen. Give us the 411.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've had inquiries, but nothing to report yet. It was good word of mouth early on. We had just a lot of, before it was even before the advanced reader copies were out, we got a lot of inquiries. So hopefully I'll have some news soon. Nothing to report right now.
Well, I can definitely see it on the screen. I mean, I was seeing it the whole time I was reading it. So thank you for that. Hey, Natalie, welcome. So tell us about this dim bar in New York and the genesis of how this book came to be.
Yeah, it sounds more glamorous than it was, but it basically was. I gone on this trip I mentioned, and I started writing the book. And there's a writers' conference in New York before the pandemic. It was every year called Twitter Fest. Which I love, and it's a great place for if you're an aspiring writer. That's you will learn craft there. You will meet people. You will find all these supportive, great, interesting people that we talk about there. And I was talking at the bar there with a guy named Joe Rossi, and that's just be just an amazing force of nature. And about the story, he liked the idea of the multiple characters and just the premise of telling the story through the deceased family members. And it was validating, it was encouraging. And so the fact that we ran these together was just, I knew it was a kind of fateful thing. And he's just been terrific about everything. And I'm just really blessed to have him, my literary agent, who's just been amazing, and the whole team at the publisher who's been made this a real dream experience.
Yay. I love hearing that. Well, we are out of time. We are actually over time. But again, you guys, I love my mystery audience because you guys always ask the best questions. So thank you for these incredible questions. Thanks for spending our afternoon with us. And thank you to our featured author, Alex Finlay. If you have not grabbed a copy of this book today, get it now and buy it through bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores through the pandemic. So the link will be in the comments, and today you can grab your copy of this book. Mike is saying thank you so much. Mike, you're so welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your awesome questions. Grab a copy of Every Last Fear because the book is so damn good. I'm loving every page. Alex, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and thank you to everyone for joining us. And we will see you here right here, same place, same time, for Mighty Mysteries next week. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.